Hello, it is 9 a.m. Eastern on a Tuesday, and you know what that means? It's time for another weekly wisdom. I'm super excited, as always, to be bringing you another diversity, equity, and inclusion little bite-sized nugget or two, some tips on how to really take your DEI to the next level. So, hi everyone, I'm Natalia Eileen. I lead Scene at Work. We're a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting firm. And every Tuesday, I'm here at 9 a.m. Eastern sharing some little tips and tricks. Today, I'm excited to focus on 3 inclusive leadership tips for middle managers. We know that middle managers can actually play a huge role in creating an inclusive workplace. And sometimes that's where some of that sense of inclusion really gets stuck. Maybe your leadership is very passionate about this. Maybe your people everywhere are interested in it. But if middle managers within your organization are unable or unequipped to offer this kind of leadership, that sense of inclusion that everyone craves, then it can all kind of crumble. So I wanted to share just 3 inclusive leadership tips and notes for you. But of course, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many different things that you can do to create an inclusive culture. And in order for us to talk about that, I wanted to make sure that we took a moment to define the difference between diversity and inclusion. Whenever we do that, I do like to share this quote from Vernae Myers. She says that diversity is being invited to the party and inclusion is being asked to dance. Excuse me. This is a helpful way of thinking about it because sometimes when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, people get these different terms confused. And in this particular instance, Renee helps us think about these 2, diversity and inclusion, as very distinct, and they are. In fact, we know from the research that it's important to have inclusion in order to get all of the benefits of diversity. And today's topic is all about creating that inclusion through leadership from middle managers, right? So again, wanted to make sure that you kept this particular quote in mind because it helps us create that distinction. And today we're talking about inclusion, which is why it's highlighted there for you. I also wanted to define inclusive leadership for you so that you had a better sense of what that is. Here's our definition. Inclusive leadership is leadership that enables everyone to feel that they are welcome to contribute and that they are valued and respected. Now, inclusive leadership is actually quite involved, and it's something that requires an ongoing intention from whoever is attempting to be an inclusive leader. And so whenever we talk about this with our colleagues, when we're doing coaching for our clients, or when we're working within our teams to really develop our own inclusive leadership, we talk about how this is definitely something that we're all always working toward, right? So again, inclusive leadership is powerful, and it's also quite a tall order. As you can see, it requires that everyone feel welcome to contribute and valued and respected. And this is also on its way to creating that sense of belonging that we sometimes hear people in this field talking about, right? Which is also incredibly powerful and important because it takes that work to the next level. Okay, now that we've gotten the chance to understand what we're talking about here when we talk about building a inclusive leadership within our middle managers, I want to share 3 tips that can help you disseminate some of these skills over to your middle managers if that's something you're doing, or if you yourself are a middle manager and you're looking to be more inclusive. Here are just 3 things that you can consider doing to help you do that. So let's start with the first one. Our first one is to build in time to check in on employees beyond the work. So perhaps this is something that you already do, but maybe you don't do it in a formalized capacity, or maybe you haven't created an intentional habit around it. This is important because it ensures that your team members, that you're the people that you're managing, that they know that you're not just thinking about them as someone who contributes to the work product and that's it, but that you recognize them as human beings and that you want to hear about them. And that creates that sense of value that we're talking about and that sense of respect that is associated with inclusive leadership. So building in time to check in on employees beyond the work can be powerful. That was our first tip. We're going to move on to number 2, and hopefully this one is just as helpful. And sometimes, again, it's not something that people do consistently. They might kind of do it, But if they don't do it consistently, then it doesn't create that reinforced sense that inclusion is a goal of theirs. So here's that next one. Our next one is soliciting feedback regularly and making changes accordingly. This honestly is a bit of a two-parter, right? Sometimes as leaders, we forget to ask for feedback. And sometimes as leaders, we forget to really mean it when we say we want feedback and to show that we mean it by actually doing the things that we were given feedback on. So this one is powerful and important. Like I said, it's kind of a two-parter. So I wanted to make sure that you got this tip, but that you got both pieces of it, so that you're soliciting feedback on a regular basis, maybe building it into something that you already do so that it's something that happens regularly, and making those changes accordingly to really reinforce that this is something that matters to you. That was tip number 2. It's time for tip number 3. And did I mention these sessions are less than 10 minutes long? Our goal is to give you these tips in a way that feels easy to take in, easy to implement. And so you've already gotten those 2. Here's the third one. So this is something that is actually much easier said than done. So you can grow your awareness of bias and normalize discussions about it. An inclusive leader is a leader who is cognizant, who is aware of the potential for bias, and who tries to build their repertoire of discussing these topics and of allowing people to recognize that while it's common and very human for us to have bias and to make assumptions, we want to create a workplace culture where these assumptions and where biases are minimized. And so that happens, these leaders take the time to build awareness of their own biases and to help others within their teams discuss those as well. We know that one of the things that makes it feel like a difficult place to work for some people, particularly those who are underrepresented in their spaces, is the presence of microaggressions. Maybe you've heard this as well, but we know that there are people who have preferred to work from home over the course of the pandemic, really happy that that's something that's happening because there have been less microaggressions for them to have to navigate. That's unfortunate. If we want to make sure that everyone feels included and like they are valued and they are respected, we need to be building in conversations about bias, and we need to be growing an awareness of bias as leaders. So those are the 3 tips, and they are not they're not easy. Hopefully they feel like a great place to start for yourself. If you are looking for ways to become more of an inclusive leader, there you go. You can also, if you maybe lead DEI within your organization and are looking for things to have your middle managers do to just become that much more inclusive, you can consider taking these in. Here they are again for you so that you have them. The first one was build in time to check in on employees beyond the work. So you can encourage middle managers to do that. You can solicit feedback regularly and make changes accordingly. You yourself can do that to be more inclusive, or you can suggest that your middle managers create a process for doing that and then show that they're paying attention to the feedback. And then lastly, you can grow your awareness of bias and normalize discussions about it. And that's something that as a DEI practitioner or as a people leader within your organization, within HR or what have you, you can create processes for getting your middle managers up to speed on bias and for building that cognizance within them. I did want to take a moment before we close out to share with you that we do have some options for helping support you with your inclusive leadership. We have a bunch of workshops that you can learn more about. You can learn more about them at cnetwork.com, which is where I am right now. And this inclusive leadership training is one that you can go ahead and find on our website at cnetwork.com. And it not only includes these tips, but it also gives you a lot more practical insight into how to do this even more so. So wanted to make sure that I highlighted that for you. We also have some courses that you can engage in if you're interested. And of course, we are always looking to support people who are interested by going ahead and getting a consultation set up. So you can go ahead and get a free consultation set up through cnetwork.com/consultation. And then if it makes sense for us to work together, we are always happy to. Okay, we're coming up on just about 10 minutes. And so that was your weekly wisdom for this week. I hope you enjoyed learning more about how you can support your middle managers. And with that, we'll see you next week on Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern. Thanks, everyone.